Hey friends, Bevin here at Small House Farm, and today we're going to be pruning up our tomato plants. Now this is part of a weekly routine. We'll come out here to maintain our tomatoes with a little bit of pruning, a little bit of work once a week is going to save us a whole lot of headache later on in the season. So I'm out here doing it. I just thought I'd show you real quick what it's all about. Now there's three different things that we're going to be working on here when we're pruning our tomatoes, but all of them really have the same goal in the end, right? We're looking for the longevity of the plant. We want to keep these plants healthy and disease-free as long as we can, hopefully to get tomatoes right up until frost, right? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go through and see if we can identify any diseased leaves, right? Now yellowing, brown spots, anything like that could be signs of potential blight. So we want to trim them off and get them out of here. So we're going to start with that. Let's do that first. Now that disease on those tomato plants, when I trim it off, definitely want to make sure I'm going to clean these blades so I don't move the problem that I'm having on that plant onto the next plants. When you're in here doing this, don't be shy, you know. You just kind of got to do it. First couple times you prune your tomatoes, you know, it's challenging to want to cut a bunch of your plant off, right? And sometimes they look a little scraggly when you're done with them. But again, a little bit of a challenge right now is much better than a whole lot of challenge come fall. The second thing that I like to do when I'm pruning my tomatoes is give them some clearance from the ground, maybe even up to 12 inches, right? All the leaves from the ground up about 12 inches, I'm going to get rid of them. This is going to help keep that soil that's splashing up while we're watering or during the rain or whatever it might be from getting on the leaves, which promotes bacteria and disease. So we're just going to take all those leaves right out of there, cut them right off. Some of these leaves are coming from awfully high up on the plant, definitely more than 12 inches, but I'm trimming them off anyways because they're hanging down and coming into contact with the soil, which is going to promote disease, like we talked about. So I'm just going to get them out of the way, clear them up now before they become a problem later. The third thing that we want to think about when we're trimming up our plants is getting good airflow. We want to make sure we have good airflow through our plants, which is also going to help increase their life, right? So we just want to kind of go through here, see any plants, any places where it's a little congested, trim those leaves right out of there, right? We just want to open up the canopy, so to speak, just to make sure we get good airflow in between our plants. Another thing that we want to take into consideration when we're pruning up our plants is getting rid of these suckers. Now you can identify the sucker from where the main stem of the plant and the leaf come together. You'll see this guy coming out right here, almost like another little tiny tomato plant. Now, these things are really just going to suck energy from the plant, and it's going to have a long-term negative effect on our production. So we just want to get those guys right out of there. Snip them right out. Now, if you are industrious and have the time for it, you could take these little guys right here, root them in some water, and get yourself a whole new tomato plant, which will give you a potential for a later season harvest as well, if you've got time for that. It would essentially be a genetic clone of the plant that you're working with here. So that's a fun way to propagate our tomato plants. Sometimes, you know, it can be hard to cut off this much of a tomato plant, you know. Since you've got some little flower buds on here and things, and you know, that could be tough to do. But in the long run, this is going to pay off. This little sucker might have given me a couple of tomatoes, but for the most part, it's going to deplete production throughout my whole plant. So getting rid of it now, as hard as it may be, it's worth it in the long run. The only tool we need to properly prune our tomatoes is a nice set of pruning shears like this. Nice sharp ones. These are a really nice pair that my wife actually got me for Christmas, so that's pretty neat. You just want to make sure that you keep them clean, right? You don't want to transfer any potential disease from one plant to the next, so take a little bit of rubbing alcohol or something and clean up the blade on these guys when you're done working, just to ensure that they're nice and sanitized before you move on to the next job. Now when we're pruning our tomatoes, it's also a good opportunity to kind of adjust them along the Florida weave. You know, as they grow and move, you might have to kind of tweak their position, straighten them out a little bit. You can see what I've been trying to do here is prune my plants to 2 main leaders. You got the main vine that comes up here, and it will split off into a V. And I'm going to prune off anything else that's going to interfere with that or get in the way. So I can have these 2 main vines right here. They're going to be our major producers for our tomatoes. Otherwise, it's just going to get too crowded and promote disease. So we just want to clean that up, give it plenty of room to breathe. Another important thing to note is you do not ever want to take these diseased tomato plants, these leaves that we're trimming off, any of this stuff, and put it in your compost. Doing that is just going to move that disease into your garden next season, right? You want to dispose of these. I'll throw them over here in the yard, I suppose, and let them decompose over here. And at the end of the season, we're going to take all of our tomato plants, disease or not, all the tomato plants, and we burn them, right? That's the easiest way to ensure that none of this is getting into the compost and then being spread out somewhere else in the garden next year. Well, that just about wraps it up, folks. So remember, you want to trim off any diseased leaves that you see, yellowing leaves, brown spots, whatever it might be. Give your plants plenty of clearance off the ground, up to 12 inches. Trim off any suckers, and clean up some of those leaves just to make sure you got good airflow on your tomatoes. And with a little bit of maintenance once a week, you're going to have healthy, vibrant plants producing tomatoes all season long, right up until frost. All right, folks, back to work for me. Happy growing.